Welcome back to the neighborhood, boys and girls. Our next guest is Mary Murphy from the Murphy Group, Real.
Yes.
We have her coming in. She's local here, right around the corner in Marlton is your office, right? Right on 73, right? And we do a lot of different stuff than a regular podcast. We're not like all business. Like we want to talk about what made you who you are. So talk a little bit about the journey of Mary from grade school to up into real estate. How'd you get here? What were some of the journeys that you had, some of the paths that you traveled?
Awesome. Okay, so are you going to cut some of this?
Sure.
Well, like, do I look? Because I wanted to ask where to look. And sorry if we just started over.
Yeah, that's
I
fine.
just did that whole thing.
No.
Look there.
You can look at the camera or you can look at me. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yep.
We're going to cut this out.
Yep. We'll edit it. It's
All
fine.
right, great. So pre-real estate.
Yep.
All the way back to grade school. So you know what? I've actually always been pretty kind of driven or like want to do things my own way. I didn't really love school that much. Like, you know, I did it, but I always kind of like to have a little more control. And it's kind of funny because I actually went into teaching before I was in real estate. But prior to that, I was always a server or a bartender. My first job, I grew up down the shore. So my first job, I was 12. And I actually delivered sandwiches on the boardwalk. One of my friends had a deli and a candy shop on the boardwalk. And her parents had a deli in the back, and they actually delivered the food to like all the people who worked all over the boardwalk. Mm-hmm. So the boardwalk was like 3 miles long, and my job was literally just to deliver the sandwiches to the stores, and then they would tip me, and that's how I got paid. But I think I learned then that the faster I was and the more that I did, the more I could make. So I got really driven. So I would fly down that boardwalk, and I would fly back, and then I would deliver them all. And so that was when I guess I first started working. I realized that was the first experience of knowing that the harder I worked, the better I did and the more that I made. So serving was the same way. I would never turn down a table. If somebody was sick, that would take 2 sections. It didn't matter. I could never be too busy. And so bartending was the same thing. You know, just all was kind of that way. And then I went into teaching. And I guess I figured you couldn't just be a bartender forever. And I kind of finished college kind of late. I was 27. And I got my teaching degree. And then I went into teaching, and it was just not the right fit. That was so different. It was so different than everything I was used to. I was making so much less money driving over the bridge in South Philly, teaching pre-K special needs. And by the time I put my second kid in daycare, I was almost working for free.
Right.
I'm like, this doesn't make any sense at all. So why don't I just go back to selling something? I can't bartend now. It doesn't work with my family life. So I started looking into what I could sell, and houses were the most expensive thing. Yeah. And that was literally how I found houses. It wasn't my love for architecture or any of that stuff. I mean, I really fell in love with it, but that wasn't the initial reason. I thought if I could just do a couple of these, I'm going to make up for the income that I'm losing in teaching. And at the time, my husband didn't need my income anyway. Then he ended up getting laid off. That's a whole nother story. So then my income became really important. So my first year, I went into it thinking I was maybe going to just dabble into this real estate thing. And then I was licensed in January of 2015 and did $7 million that year. It was 37 houses.
I knew none of that about you, but we have so many similarities. I started working when I was 13. I started hustling. I also was a teacher and got into it. I didn't finish it out for a different reason. I had a job and I liked it, but I couldn't get a job within like 50 minutes to an hour from where I lived, and I was like, this is nuts. I'll have to do something else. And then
that's how I ended up in South Philly, right?
Yeah.
Because the teaching industry was so competitive then it was impossible.
You were in South Jersey.
I was South Jersey.
Yeah.
I wanted to work in Jersey, but there was just it was impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, I really couldn't even get a job in Camden at the time. That was the only place I could even get an interview.
Yeah.
So,
I lived in Stratford, Laurel Springs, and the closest job I could get, there was one in Pemberton, there was one up above Mount Holly, and then there was one, I went to Rider University, there was one outside of Princeton, one of the smaller towns, not the nicer towns, the smaller towns, but it was like 2 hours and 25 minutes every day in the car. I was like, this is ridiculous for, at the time it was like $42,000 a year. I was like, no way. I had no idea. But it's crazy. I'm talking to a lot of realtors, the restaurant background, the hustle, waitress, bartender, pizza delivery guy, that tends to be a common trait with people because they have that hustle mentality that the more you work, the more you get, the tips, the commission, longer hours kind of thing. So common trait for a lot of realtors.
It is. So is teaching, funny enough, is that both of those actually really are transferable into real estate.
Nice. And you hit the ground running, right? You were in there 2015, you did 7 million, and now you were just exponentially growing in a time that wasn't really the easiest time to grow. It wasn't
But I joined a team. So
Okay.
I did join a team my first year. So I think that when I realized how much goes into real estate, and if you ever ask me a question about, teams, should you join a team if you're a new agent, any kind of agent, I only believe in teams. I believe at all times you should either be on a team or building a team. That's it. And the reason for that is there's so many different tasks associated with a real estate transaction that I can't imagine any one person being really great at all of them or really enjoying all of them.
Sure.
You'd be great at all of them if you've done it long enough, I guess, but you're not enjoying every piece of it. So that's what I think I learned early on was how can I just learn how to sell and not learn all this other stuff right this minute. I can't learn all of this at all at the same time and also really do well. So I decided to be a specialist, and I specialized in selling, and I role played, and I prospected, and I took every training class I could, and I couldn't write a contract, and I didn't know how to do any of that back end stuff, but it didn't really matter because I had someone doing that for me. And so that's how I was able to do so well. And my entire career, besides a couple little glitches, I've either been on a team or building one.
That's crazy. I had the conversation with a lot of newer agents that I know, whether they're personal friends or stuff, and they'll come in and they'll get talked to by somebody who says, we're doing 90% commission. And they're like, oh, well, that's where I'm going. And I'm like, look, I don't know how to explain this to you, but 90% of nothing is nothing. If you get on a team, even if they're giving you 50% and you're a buyer's agent for a huge listing agent and they're handing you 10 leads a week, 50% of those 10 leads is way more than 90% of whatever uncle, sister's cousin you're going to get one of every 2 months.
And the thing is that the thing that people don't realize, and I don't think it's talked about enough, is that an agent on a team, their gross is their net. So if they're getting a 50%, let's say, well, they're also getting signs, lockboxes, admin support, a CRM system, marketing. They're getting, an office space. They're getting all of this stuff. Like, it's not free for us to run an organization like this. So and the average agent spends between 30 and 90% of their gross commission on all of that stuff. And no one really talks about that, right? So you want to go to this flat fee brokerage that, it costs you $500 a transaction. Well, how much did that transaction really cost you? Did you spend any money marketing? Did you do a client event? Did you pay for a lead service? Do you have a CRM system? Do you have signs, lockboxes, flyers, all of that stuff? When you back all that out, you probably only took home 50% or less anyway.
All of your net expenses that you have. And also, it's a lot about the percentages don't really matter. It's you got to get what you pay for. If you're able to close $30 million in transactions and get 50%, or you can only do $7 million in transactions and get 90%. What are the numbers? You don't spend percentages, you spend cash.
Right, gross income doesn't pay for anything. The gross income doesn't really mean anything. So that's just an important thing to talk about. And of course, the value. Everything's about value. And so one of the things we talk about on our team a lot is that I truly believe that every member of my team will do better with us than they would on their own. Like, I'm going to add so much value that it would be crazy for them to leave if they're really taking account to if they're really diving in and want all the value. If they want to sell a couple houses a year and that's really their goal, then we're probably not the right fit.
Right.
But I have agents that make well over 6 figures their first year, and most agents don't do that. So
what you pay for in a mentor, that's another huge thing for me. Like, we talked about college. You're paying $50,000 a year to go to a college, but you feel funny about your mentor making $10,000 a year off of you. It's like crazy when you think about it. You make so much more learning from the person that really knows what they're doing, and they're pouring their heart and soul into you. It's like I go back and forth. My ex-wife is a real estate agent, and we had the conversation. I'm like, listen, I think you should probably go be on a team. And she eventually did go on a team as a buyer's agent, and she was like, yeah, this is it. But people hear that number, and they're so used to, I make 100% commission minus a flat fee, and they don't realize the value of it.
It's different values across everywhere, right? So sometimes that is a value. If you're an investor and you want to sell your own deals and you only want to do a few a year,
Sure.
then you should go with the highest commission split. That makes sense for you. Now, if you want to spend most of your time in your strength zone, we're all about strength zone, right? So how can I make my agents and myself spend all of our time just doing what we love and what we do best and leverage everything out to someone else who is going to do what they love and do best? Then we're just going to do more of that, and we're going to be happier, and we're going to live freer lives. So that's kind of the way I look at it. And it's never about, I don't really think it's ever about the money. The money will come if you're putting the time in and putting the work in and doing what you love. That's kind of how I look at it.
You also tend to do, because I follow you on social media, you tend to do a lot of female empowering talks and a bunch of female networking groups. How important is that to you? Because you're in what would be traditionally called a male-dominated business type thing. So talk a little bit about the importance of that for you and the organizations that you have there.
So it's kind of funny because 60 to 65% of licensed realtors are female. But if you were to look at all of these events and all of these masterminds, they're all male dominated. And they might put a trophy female on there or a token female on there because they have to like fill that quota. But that's not what it looks like. And sometimes they don't. In fact,
Right.
I have a habit of screenshotting them every time I see a mastermind event when it's all male. And I'm like, why? There's so many of us and we have so much to offer.
Yeah.
So it was really just to give other female realtors a voice and just show that we're leaders as well. And so it is important to me, and it's not because it's not just the feminist part of it. I just feel like I connect to other women. I want them to be strong.
Sure.
But I also do coach, men and all of that
Sure.
stuff too. And our team's very diverse.
Yeah, but if you're a female getting into the business, you want to believe that you can do it. And if you don't see other females doing it, you might tell yourself, this is a male business that I can't
And it's not male
be
dominated.
successful. No.
It's just
No.
not, it's really just not true. So I just really kind of want to put it out there where it's like,
Yeah.
what, there's a lot of great male agents. There is some badass female agents, and we
Sure.
all can learn from each other.
Yeah.
And, I never really thought of, it wasn't even because I felt like I was like feeling shunned or less than as a woman. I just wanted to put it out there. Like I never really cared about that. I'm always just going to be, doing my thing.
Sure.
But yeah.
Did you feel coming into the business at first, did you feel like that was going to be a hurdle that you had to overcome?
I didn't. That's what I mean. I never really did. I
Got
never
it.
did think that. I never felt that way. And there may have been times where someone else may have felt that way.
Sure.
But I only pay attention to the opinions of people that I admire and that I care about. So it doesn't
Right.
matter.
Yeah, and I think maybe in the timeline respect of it, some of the other females that I've had on like Gina Romano comes to mind all the time. She was talking like 1998-ish kind of thing, and I think maybe there was a little more of a stigma earlier on than that. And
I don't
definitely,
think it went away. I think I just never was bothered by it.
Okay.
And I think it wasn't like I haven't worked with, the 40-year veteran who wants to call me honey during a transaction, right? I don't care. Call me honey if we're going to get this deal done. Like,
Right.
that's really who I am. So I never really cared. So I guess I have felt that. It hasn't ever stopped me or bothered me.
Gotcha. So what do you look for in a teammate or a partner that you want to bring onto your team? Are there certain qualities where they stand out to you as someone you would want to bring on, or certain qualities that if they have, you're like, I don't think you're a fit?
So I'm really looking for people who are, humble, hungry, and coachable. And so they're humble enough to be trained. They want to learn. They're hungry. They want to make money. They want to help people. They want to do well. And they're coachable. So I can coach them how to follow a schedule. I can coach them how to talk to people. And they're willing to be open to feedback and constructive criticism. So that's really what I'm looking for. Really, when I sit down and talk to someone, I just want to know what their goals are. Like, what is your goal to get to the next level? If at the end of this year we're sitting down together and this year was a win, what would that look like? And when they can tell me what that looks like, if I can figure out a way that I can be a catalyst to make that happen, then they're a fit for me. And then if I get to know them on a personal level, then I can hold them accountable to that for the entire year. So whatever they tell me, I can remind them, like, I know you told me that when we first sat down together that your goal was to, quit that bartending job at the end of the year. How's that going?
A lot of people have trouble
Right.
with that. A lot of people
Yeah.
as leaders have trouble holding people accountable, especially with that technique of like, hey, when we first talked, here was your goals. I don't think you're in line for that. Did it change? Do you still want to do? A lot of people have trouble.
Well, it's a learned skill. I had trouble at first. It was like, I thought you wanted to sell 2 houses a month. Like, you didn't even make any calls yesterday.
Right.
I wanted to, I just didn't understand it because I'm self-accountable and I'm a driver personality style. So it took me a long time to learn how to be able to, really be that mentor leader. There's different types of leaders, and what I was at one point was a controlling leader, right? I had maybe low connectivity. So I can do this quick, I think. So there's different types of leaders, right? There's
Sure.
the absent leader. That absent leader is, there's low connection and there's low accountability, low expectations. They don't care. They're in the office in the back, their door's shut. There's the buddy leader, which I think a lot of leaders are, especially in this industry, and especially since we're not paying our agents salaries. They just want to be friends. They just want to like each other. So there's high connectivity, but there's low expectations, low accountability. Go do whatever you want. We can go hang out together, and whatever you do is fine. Then there's force. Then there's the controlling leader, which is what I tended to be in the beginning, where it was like, it's low connection, but there's high expectations. Well, you didn't get permission to hold that person accountable. So now when you try and hold them accountable, they think you're coming from a place of being a boss, and you're trying to hold entrepreneurs, 1099 self-employed people accountable, and it's really hard. So the fourth one is that mentor leader, and that's what I've really strived to be, and that's that high connection. I know what you want to do and why you want to do it, and what you said you commit to so that you could do it, and how your life will look if you do it.
Right.
And then, so there's that high, but I also have really high expectations. So if you tell me you're going to do it, I'm not going to forget that, and I'm going to hold your feet to the fire. And if you're not really willing to be accountable, you're not going to probably like being with me. We're not, because people don't really like their feet held to the fire. So that's kind of where I am. So that's how I can hold people accountable, because I build the connection first.
It seems like that would come easier for you. That is the more difficult one for me. I tend to be more of the buddy type thing, and it's definitely a skill that I've had to keep working on.
It didn't come natural. It doesn't come natural.
No.
That's the thing, is that people think they're a great agent and they sell a lot of houses so they can go build a team, and that being a great agent is transferable to being a great leader. They are different jobs. They're different roles. So I had to really work, and it's a work in progress. It's not done, but I spent a lot of time working on it.
Nice. All right, we talked about the early on. Let's talk about the future. 2025, middle of the year. Give me some of the goals that you're going to accomplish, some of the boxes you're going to check off between now and then for you personally, the Murphy Group, and whatever you have.
So I'm personally not selling too many at that point. I think I always want to stay in the game. So I'm maybe selling, I still think I'll sell 18 to 24 houses a year myself. Okay. But I want to have a large team where everyone's in their strength zone, the connection, and we have a great culture within our team that's bigger. Other revenue streams, more investment properties, probably ownership and mortgage, title, all of those things. And more vacation homes. I mean, there's a lot that I want to do. I'm also coaching and speaking a lot more than I am now. And I'm actually making money.
There you go.
Talked about it.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's the goal.
That's more of the CEO type mentality than the on the ground.
So leadership is what I'm attracted to, and I really just want to spend my time in that. So leadership, mentorship, coaching and speaking, and then investing, right? So I know that if someone joins me now, that I can help them make more than they're likely going to make on their own. Okay. New or experienced. I think that most of my top agents are making double, even sometimes triple what a solo agent is making right now. So I know how to help them do that, and I just want to help more people.
All right, your last question, your personal question, would be, we'll go music. If you could have any rock star, rock band, alive or dead, anybody ever through the history of music come to your house this weekend and play 2 songs, who would the band be, and what would the 2 songs be that you'd want to hear them play?
Oh, that's like the worst question for me.
You're not a music person?
I'm not. Do you know what? My kids actually beg me not to have talking on in my car because I always have podcasts or books.
Okay.
Okay,
we'll change it then.
Okay, change it.
You could have a 30-minute interview with any person throughout history, alive or dead, famous, not famous, relative. president, whatever, who would the person be, and what would a question be that you would want to ask them?
So I think there's two of those. So Brene Brown, who writes a lot
Okay.
of my favorite books,
Love
and she talks a
Brene,
lot about
sure.
vulnerability. I would definitely want to interview with her, and just really ask her how she decided that was going to be her topic and how she wrote so many books on it and was so successful. The second one is Sarah Blakely. She's the CEO, founder of Spanx,
Okay.
and the first female billionaire. So that's the other person that I would talk to, and how she just kind of kept pushing even with all of that rejection and all those no's. So those would be my two favorites.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for coming by, Mary.
Thank you.
We'll be back with the next guest on Mr. Mortgage's Neighborhood.